When it comes to assessing NFL teams, we must focus on one thing: environment. And inside of that, we must focus on two things: performance and consistency. So when we look at the Chicago Bears and their decision to move on from Justin Fields, that makes sense because they kept their coaching environment intact. And what that tells us is that these coaches feel it's important to not get caught up in the potential of a Justin Fields performance, but rather focus on the lack of consistency. Let's dive in. First up, let's look at the decision to keep the coaches intact to begin with. Eberflus is allergic to young players, and Justin Fields was hardly ever in a position to be successful while in Chicago. Young players must be allowed to utilize their strengths while developing a targeted plan to improve their weaknesses. Fields shines with his legs and ability to improvise, rushing for over 1,100 yards back in 2022. But in 2023, the Bears coaching staff said they wanted him to do less improvisation, be more of a pocket passer, which, if you've read our analysis of what the Miami Dolphins should do with Tua Tagovailoa, you understand why it's important that improvisation needs to be a critical part of a quarterback's game. Because they wanted more pocket presence and less improvisation with Justin Fields, they thought it was a good idea to combine that with subpar teaching and development, which created a square peg, round hole situation for the young quarterback, making him more indecisive while already trying to make heads and tails of an imperfect environment. Speaking of that environment, in 2022, the Bears gave Fields one of the league's worst defenses, which is supposed to be Matt Eberflus' specialty. They gave up over 1 point per minute of opponent possession time as soon as they traded away Roquan Smith. In 2023, while they improved their score prevention behavior 12.3% year over year, they were still the 5th worst defense in the NFL. That's not exactly setting your young quarterback up for success. Now, when you combine that with piss-poor offensive coaching and development, Fields was never going to be successful in Chicago under this regime. And since the head of the regime has come back, sans the sacrificial lambs that he put on the altar so he could remain the head coach, moving on from Justin Fields for this environment was the right call for Fields and probably for the Bears as well. Now, as for Fields, we must assess his performance. And it's not that he's a bad quarterback, it's just he's not the right quarterback for the Chicago Bears. With only a 30% win rate under Fields, the mismatch for quarterback and environment is clear. And more than that, in 2023, which was seen as a make or break year for both Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears, the scoring didn't really change for the team regardless of who the quarterback was. Justin Fields went down with an injury for 4 games and his backup came in, and their scoring behavior rate barely moved. Scoring behavior rate is points scored per minute of possession time, and regardless of who the quarterback was, the Bears averaged just a little over a half a point per minute of possession time, with both quarterbacks' average being separated by less than 0.02 of a point. Beyond just performance though, remember, the second thing we have to look at when assessing environment is consistency. And in Justin Fields' case, we're actually talking about the lack of consistency. His performance was like a roller coaster. Really, really high highs, but really, really low lows. While it is true that the 5 best scoring performances of 2023 for the Bears came with Justin Fields as their starter, that's also true for their 5 worst scoring performances, meaning Tyler Bagent starts, the backups were not among the worst performances, and that's not a good sign for your football team. This chart shows the variance in performance for both phases of Fields as a starter. See how bouncy his data points are? Now look at the middle phase with the backup quarterback as the starter. Those performances are much more bunched together, meaning they're much more consistent, they're much more predictable. Coaches hate inconsistency. It's their nightmare fuel. And in the last 2 seasons, that's what Justin Fields has been, with a bounce rate of times 2.7. Said another way, while Fields has potential, the Bears believe both he and the team are better off with better fits somewhere else. So here's to new beginnings for both. But in the world of the NFL, it's all about finding the right match for the current environment you're in now. And for the Bears and Fields, it's clearly time to turn the page.